Hey guys, Geospooks here. Welcome to the second episode of Cryptids Across America. If you haven't been here before, this is the series where we go state by state all across the US and judge your homes based completely off of the local legends around them. We are continuing our New England, or our East Coast, I should say, trip with the Mid Atlantic region now. And if I'm being completely honest, I had no idea that this region even existed. I just figured it was like an extension of the East Coast. But here we are. So, uh, with that being said, let's get right into it. We're starting off in New York with this series' first actually confirmed legend, the New York sewer alligators. While not technically a cryptid, I think the story still fits well enough within this series, as well as being 100% confirmed actually adds on top of that. On February 9th, 1935, a group of teenagers in Salem, New York, were shoveling snow down into a manhole when they caught the glimpse of something shiny and slippery swimming in the cold water down below. They managed to lasso it up with a homemade clothesline rig and discovered it was an alligator. However, when it snapped at them, they beat it to death with their shovels. When it was later measured, it came in at an impressive 8 feet long from snout to tail and weighed a whopping 125 pounds. Naturally, the incident spread like wildfire, and the whole city became obsessed with the idea of a whole colony of alligators living underneath their great city in the sewers. This sentiment was reinforced when a couple years later, in 1937, a barge captain in the East River pulled up a smaller 4'8" gator. And then later that week, a 2-foot gator crawled out of a trash can on a subway platform in Brooklyn. Luckily, a police officer was able to jump on top of that smaller 2-foot gator and tie its mouth shut before it was able to snap at him. Now, if you're like me, you're kind of wondering how a gator, even as small as 2 foot, could get into a trash can in downtown metropolitan Brooklyn. But people believe that it was unfortunately a pet that the owner either got tired of or it outgrew and the owner decided to dispose of it in a trash can on a subway platform. Since that very eventful week in 1937, there haven't been really any gator sightings in New York City. However, it only has grown in popularity. It's a common held sentiment in city people all over the world, especially in the Americas, that there may or are gators living in the subway, maybe, but mostly in the sewer. It got to the point where people started to believe that it was only a once or twice off event and that it wouldn't really happen in modern times. That was until in 1997 when a 4-foot gator was pulled out of Kissinya, sorry if I mispronounce this, Kissinya Lake in Queens. However, this was the start of a gator renaissance, to say. Later in 2003, a 3-foot gator was pulled out of a pond in Queens. And later in 2010, a small 2-foot gator was pulled out from underneath a car in downtown Queens. Now, don't ask me why they're all in Queens. I genuinely have no idea. I guess they just like Queens. In modern times, the city has moved to fully accept their scaly friends, building statues and making February 9th, the date of the original GatorCon, a sort of unofficial holiday to celebrate their scaly friends. Next up is New Jersey, and there's really only one creature I could have gone with for New Jersey, and that is the Jersey Devil. And here's a fun little side story about the Jersey Devil, is when I was a kid reading about all these little cryptid creature tree folk, the Jersey Devil was the one that always terrified me for some reason. I don't even know. We're not even close to Jersey here, or a country away, but uh, he made it so that I would be scared to look out of my window because every time I'd see a tree move in the dark, I thought it was the Jersey Devil coming to get me. So I don't know. I've always kind of had a deep appreciation for this flapping, flying fella. But anyway, the legend starts with Deborah Leeds, a mother of 12 living at Leeds Point, deep within the Jersey Pine Barrens. One day, she learned that she would be pregnant once again, and angry at this, she cursed the child, claiming that it would be the devil incarnate whenever it comes out. In 1735, on a dark and stormy night, Miss Leeds went into labor. The birth is successful. Everything goes right. She gives birth to a beautiful baby boy. But whenever she moved to embrace him, he turned into a horrible demonic creature. He sprouted a snout resembling a goat, hooves resembling a goat, and a long devil pointed tail. He also sprouted bat-like wings. The creature started growling and screaming at them, before beating them all with its tail and shooting up through the chimney, out into the stormy pine barrens of New Jersey. Since then, the sightings have been plentiful and have even included some big names, such as Commodore Stephen Decker, a American naval officer who, when inspecting a artillery mill, the Hanover Mill Works, he sees the creature flying in the air. In true American fashion, he orders that it shot out of the sky with a cannon. However, he he either missed or it had no effect because nothing ever came of it. Later in 1820, Joseph Bonaparte, Napoleon Bonaparte, you may have heard of him, his older brother, he had a hunting estate in New Jersey, and one day, out with his retinue hunting the woods, he sees the creature. Throughout the years, the Jersey Devil would be blamed for the death of cattle and missing people. However, in 1909, everything would change. Several newspapers would start publishing, just out of the blue, hundreds of stories of encounters with the Jersey Devil, from encounters with police involving a shooting in Bristol to strange tracks in the snow in Delaware Valley. This is also where the famous sketch of the Jersey Devil comes from. It was published by the Philadelphia Bulletin. The public became so enamored with the Jersey Devil that schools closed and businesses sent their employees home. The Philadelphia Zoo even offered a $10,000 reward for any trace of the Jersey Devil. This spawned a whole bunch of hoaxes to be submitted. One even included a kangaroo with claws and bat wings stapled onto it. And though the amount of claims and reported sightings have gone down over the years, the Jersey Devil is still probably the most important legend in New Jersey. Pennsylvania is following up with a depressing little ball of snot called the squonk. It was first documented in the 1910 book Fearsome Creatures of the Lumberwoods by William T. Cox. Nice. And according to the book, it resides in the northern hemlock regions of Pennsylvania. William Cox describes the squonk as having ill-fitting skin, covered in warts and moles, and if you happen to get a glimpse of the squonk, it will probably just disintegrate into a puddle of its own tears. That's how you're going to find it, by following a trail of its tears, because it's so ugly and hideous. And I can relate on so many levels to the squonk, and now I'm sad. But locally for the squonk, the locals are happy to help. Every year in downtown Johnstown, Pennsylvania, they hold Squonkapalooza, a giant festival dedicated to trying to cheer up the squonk. Similar to their Massachusetts cousins, the squonk has kind of become a sort of mascot, kind of like the Dover Demon in Massachusetts. The Pennsylvania locals hold the squonk in great regard. Honestly, Delaware, you guys really let me down. 90% of your cryptids are either confirmed hoaxes or aren't unique to your state. You should feel ashamed, and this is an attack on your state, your country, and your people. You are disappointing. Anyway, we'll be talking about the Mue, a knockoff Wendigo. The Mue were a race of towering ice giants from the Lenape folklore. Lenape. I am sorry if I mispronounced that. I am horrible with names. But I'm not sad for you, Delaware. You deserve it. Like the Wendigo, it is said that a human would turn into a Mue if they engaged in any sort of cannibalism or other great sins of that nature. They would grow to a size that would tower over the tallest trees and seem to migrate with the winter. They seem to really love the cold weather. The Mue would feed upon any man in their path. However, if offered a civilized meal, such as cooked meats or vegetables and fruit, then the Mue would be able to turn back into a human, unlike the Wendigo. While the District of Columbia isn't technically a state, I don't really see an issue with including it on this list. It is our nation's capital, after all, so with the swamp comes the monster, this time in form of the Demon Cat of Capitol Hill. Future Geospooks here, and since I've recorded this episode, I've learned that ghosts and demons and creatures that supposedly exist on another plane of reality from us don't qualify as cryptids. So I'd just like to real quickly apologize to the District of Columbia because you're stuck with a ghost. But I think it's an interesting enough ghost to leave it in, and you guys aren't really a state, so I think I could get by with it. So going forward, I won't be using any ghosts. However, there is a debate on aliens, on if they're cryptids or not. And I'm of the opinion that they're unconfirmed. Look at that kitty cat. Oh, they're playing. I'm of the opinion that they are um, they are cryptids. They're unconfirmed creatures, and I just think they're cool. So I'm going to keep putting those guys in. But ghosts and demons and stuff like that, I will exempt. So sorry for the interruption. Back to the video. The story of the demon cat goes back to the mid 1800s when the basement of the Capitol building was infected with rats. So they brought the cats in to try and flush the rats out. The legend goes that this cat, the demon cat, was one of the last ones down there and unfortunately would perish down there. According to a 1898 Washington Post article, the demon cat is a normal-sized cat that, when spotted, would grow to a enormous size, the size of an elephant or such, and would leap at the viewer, who would then freak out, obviously, and the cat would disappear in midair right before it lands on the viewer. The first recorded appearance of the demon cat was in the basement of the U.S. Capitol building in 1862. Little fact that I didn't really know about until researching this video is that the basement of the Capitol building was actually used as a bakery to help feed soldiers during the Civil War, and the demon cat was seen several times during this period. During this time, a guard reportedly fired his handgun at the cat when it promptly disappeared before his eyes. Uh, as cool as the demon cat is, there isn't really that much on it, and it hasn't been seen, or reported to have been seen, since the end of World War II. Unfortunately, when it comes to Virginia, most of the famous cryptids were stolen by West Virginia through alimony checks after the breakup. This leaves Virginia with some of the more obscure ones. However, obscure doesn't necessarily mean bad, and it could actually be a help instead of a hindrance, especially when it comes to the spooky stuff such as cryptids. This brings me to the Southern Virginia woodbooger. Woodbooger is just a name for Bigfoot in Southern Virginia, most commonly around the town of Saltville. He gets his name from the boogeyman because he is said to carry children off kicking and screaming into the woods to never be seen again. I bet you're not laughing now, but I am. The most notable sighting of the woodbooger is from a 2009 YouTube video titled "The Beast of Gum Hill!" Sorry, it's in all caps. Here, I'll play it here. Since then, the show Finding Bigfoot has held an episode in Saltville, Virginia, and it has led to a huge tourism boom for the town. So much so that the locals have actually started to remake the town around the woodbooger, from renaming businesses to building him statues, to even holding festivals for the guy, like the Dover Demon and the Pennsylvania Squonk. The locals have kind of turned the woodbooger into a local legend and beloved mascot, which I think is really wholesome. As long as you don't mind a few missing kids. Oh boy, I'm ending this episode off on a banger. West Virginia. This state needs no introduction when it comes to the cryptid community. And there's so many cryptids, it honestly deserves its own video dedicated just for this small little state. However, for this episode, I'm only allowed to pick my favorite, and that means we're going to be talking about the Flatwoods Monster. At 7:15 p.m. on September 12th, 1952, Edward and Fred May, brothers, and their friend Tommy Hare said that they saw a bright light streak the sky and land in a neighboring farm. This farm was the property of one G. Bailey Fisher. The boys then went to the home of one Kathleen May, where they told their story. May, accompanied by the three boys, and local children Neil Nunley and Ronnie Shaver, and West Virginia National Guardsman Eugene Lemon, went to the Fisher farm in an effort to figure out what it was. The group reached the top of a hill when Nunley said that they saw a pulsing red light. Lemon said he aimed a flashlight in that direction and momentarily saw a tall, man-like figure with a round red face surrounded by a pointed hood-like shape. Later, Fate magazine wrote an article based on the tape-recorded interviews of the witnesses. Gray Barker, a UFO writer, described the figure as approximately 10 feet tall, which emitted greenish-orange light, and a dark black or green body. May described the figure as having small claw-like hands, clothing like folds, and a head that resembled the ace of spades. According to the story, the figure hissed and jumped at them, and Lemon dropped his flashlight, and the group fled the hill, which honestly, I do not blame them. I would too if I was in that situation. The group later said that they smelled a pungent mist, and some later said that they were nauseated. Later, a local sheriff and his deputy showed up to the area to investigate and saw nothing and smelled nothing. The next day, a Lee Stewart Jr. of the Braxton Democrat, a local newspaper, investigated the area and claimed to have discovered skid marks and a odd gummy deposit. Of course, UFO enthusiasts have claimed that it's a UFO landing, but skeptics have also claimed that the creature may have just been a barn owl that spooked a bunch of frightened kids alone in the dark. However, once again, the town has embraced the creature as a sort of touristy area and have even opened a museum up just to its honor, which I hope to visit one day. It looks pretty sweet. Thank you guys for watching until the end of the episode. I'm doing my best to try and increase the production value from episode to episode. Hopefully it shows in this one from episode 1. Let me know if you guys have any criticisms or what you guys would like to see in my videos just in general. And until the next one, have a good one.